Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wheel to Wheel podcast brought to you by AbsoluteMotorsport.com and the Allway TV network. I'm Joshua Sutil, and joining today is James Casey. We're going to be talking about Formula One because it's been pretty busy recently, loads and loads of silly season news to talk about. But let's talk with the biggest story right now in F1, and that is, of course, the promotion of Charles Leclerc from Sauber to Ferrari for next year. Kimi Räikkönen is stepping down to Sauber for the next 2 years. And Leclerc is going to get his big chance after what's been a really, really impressive rookie season so far. James, what was your sort of reaction to this huge F1 silly season news?
Yeah, not too surprised by the fact that Leclerc was going to be promoted. Obviously, there was quite a lot of rumours that it changed around, didn't it? One moment it was definitely Leclerc, then it was, oh, Raikkonen could be staying. But in the end, it was kind of expected that Leclerc would be promoted. And I'm excited by that to see how he gets on against Vettel next season. That's going to be really good. But I was very surprised by the fact that Raikkonen didn't retire, and he's going to be staying on with Sauber, and not only just committing to one season, but 2 seasons with Sauber. So he'll be driving into his 40s in Formula One, which I was very surprised about indeed.
Yes, 41 at the end of his 2 year deal. So, not too sure of that decision myself. I mean, I would have preferred Sauber to go for sort of a young driver or someone else, ideally. But, still Raikkonen has obviously got the desire. He wouldn't have signed the contract if not. I'm sure he's already got enough money as well. So it's probably not really motivated by that. He seems to sort of want a bit of a new challenge. So that will at least present it for him and at least have equal, of course, opportunity against his teammate, unlike he does at Ferrari at the moment. So that's going to be interesting to see. Who do you think is going to be in that seat alongside him at Sauber?
Well, I'm not too sure. When it was originally announced, I kind of thought, oh yeah, that's definitely Giovinazzi's chance gone, and it'll be Ericsson alongside him. But from what stuff I've heard since, it wasn't really a Ferrari orchestrated move. Sauber did want Raikkonen, so that doesn't necessarily mean that Ferrari have said no, we don't want Giovinazzi. So they might still push for him to go into that Sauber seat, but we know how hard to displace Marcus Ericsson it is, because a lot of people thought that he would have been gone at the start of this season. So I'm not too sure, but I get the feeling that Ericsson is just going to hang on again like he did last season, and Giovinazzi's going to unfortunately miss out when I think he really deserves his Formula 1 chance.
Well, I think the problem is Giovinazzi's too good at his job. He's too good as a sort of sim driver for Ferrari. He's too good at sort of turning their weekends around and really sort of helping them behind the scenes. So I think he's kind of doing too much of a good job there. Ferrari don't want to lose him, even if it means putting him in, a Sauber race seat. I think they'd rather have him as their kind of sim driver. So maybe that's sort of a little to play for. And they've already got Leclerc as well now at Ferrari. So I guess they're probably not too sort of worried about finding the next star because they've already kind of got him. So yeah, I think he might miss out, but it seems pretty 50-50 at the moment, so let's keep an eye on that one. Silly season's been pretty crazy so far, so yeah, that one's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, coming back to Leclerc and sort of Vettel, do you think there's any sort of repeat of 2014 that may occur? Does Leclerc have a chance at not only beating Vettel next year, but challenging for the championship?
It's hard to tell. But I think that he's going to give Vettel more of a challenge than what Raikkonen has. I think Vettel probably will come out on top because there's not that big regulation change, which I think really even the playing field between him and Ricciardo. So I think he will be able to stay ahead of Leclerc, but you can't underestimate Leclerc at all. So it wouldn't surprise me if Leclerc was running Vettel and pushing him onto the next level, which of course is a positive thing for Vettel as long as it doesn't take too many points out of him.
Does this give Ferrari a stronger lineup compared to Mercedes now? This Mercedes are going to kind of regret, do you think, signing Bottas or re-signing Bottas so early in the season?
Yeah, that is a tough one to call. I get the feeling that yeah, you've caught me off guard a bit. Well, that I'm not.
Is it too
Sure.
drastic to say that they could reverse that decision, or
I don't.
and put Esteban Ocon in there
I don't
next
think
year?
they're going to do that because I don't think Bottas has obviously had that bad luck at the start of the season, and since then he's kind of just not performed quite up to scratch. But he hasn't done badly enough to be kicked off. But whether it makes Ferrari a stronger line than Mercedes, I'm not too sure. I think it depends what kind of form Bottas is in, and that's been on quite a big peak and trough so far in his time at Mercedes.
It's gonna be exciting to see those in it because this year only two drivers can win the title. Maybe next year it'll be three.
Yeah, that would be definitely nice to see, and see if Red Bull could finally get involved as well. But I somehow doubt that, so it's good to see Ferrari bring in someone who could be challenging.
Let's just talk about some of the kind of other silly season stories going on. Toro Rosso, what do you think is going on there? And do you have any idea of who it could be?
No, basically. Obviously, there's been a lot of names flying around. Brendan Hartley could end up staying on. And then you've got Kvyat's been rumoured. There's Buemi had a seat fitting, didn't he? And then that was suddenly on the cards, maybe. I've heard Vern's name mentioned, Van Dorn, Tipton, but obviously he's not the right super license points, and even Mick Schumacher now has been mentioned. So, yeah, impossible to call pretty much. I think it probably will end up being one of those lot, but I think we could see someone really left field as one of the two drivers at Toro Rosso.
Do you think there's space for Ocon on the grid? George Russell as well? Do you think either of those Mercedes juniors will find a seat, or are they going to be left with no chair when the music stops?
Yeah, they're not going to be left with a good seat, unfortunately. If they do get
Williams,
something,
I guess,
it's
isn't
going
it?
to be
Is there any
Williams,
chance?
yeah. So unless Williams make a step forward, which is possible because they're quite well known. 2011, they only scored like 5 points all season, didn't they? And then they won a race in 2012.
Very
So
true.
I don't think we'll see that again, but
Possibly not. No.
but you never know. You never know. But yeah, I don't think they're not going to get a good seat. It's definitely going to be a backward step for Ocon. If he goes out the sport, that would be such a big shame. At least with Russell, he's not dropping out of the sport. At least he's still he's not losing something he's got, but it's still not really fair. Those drivers should both be in Formula One next season, really.
Let's talk about McLaren's new pairing, Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris, an all new lineup for them. Obviously, Alonso potentially going off to IndyCar, but certainly leaving the sport. And then obviously Van Dorn being sort of dumped from the team. What do you make of that lineup for next year? And do you think it was the right decision to promote Norris, so early?
Yeah, it is a tough one to call. Van Dorn is someone that they've invested a lot of time into. His performances haven't been good, but you can't question that he's a fantastic driver from what we've seen in the junior series, and towards the end of last season he was also very good. So a harsh call on Van Dorn, but in the same respect you can't really ignore Norris. They would have lost Norris if they hadn't promoted him. I'm sure he would have gone elsewhere, especially if he'd won the F2 title, because he wouldn't have been able to do another season in that. So I think that it was kind of a necessary decision, but very harsh on Van Dorn. They could have gone with both Van Dorn and Norris, but then I don't think that's great in terms of experience. I think Sainz was a good little choice, definitely another driver with talent. So as I said, yeah, harsh on Van Dorn, but I think Sainz and Norris is a pretty good lineup.
Yeah, let's hope Van Dorn gets another shot elsewhere. Because, like you said, you don't just suddenly become slow after having sort of a really stellar junior career. So, yeah, change of environment. Hopefully for Van Dorn, Toro Rosso probably his best bet. Maybe Sauber. We'll have to see. But obviously the queue is pretty long for those remaining seats. We'll keep an eye on that. Like you say, I feel like there is one more twist still in this sort of mad, silly season so far. So, and we'll see if there's a seats for sort of Markelov, Sorokin. I guess we expect Stroll to go to Force India. But still no confirmation on that. So, yeah, let's keep our eyes out. I think it's all going to continue to kick off. Singapore this weekend, James. Who's going to be strong here? Is it going to be Red Bull's weekend? Is it going to be Ferrari's, or is the rain going to come down and Hamilton and Mercedes going to steal another one?
Well, yeah, the rain does look very likely. I mean, it quite often is at Singapore, and then it doesn't come to fruition. But yeah, certainly I would say Mercedes would very much appreciate a sprinkling of rain at the very least, because this could be a really good chance for Ferrari to take a chunk of points out in both championships, because if they can stay ahead of Red Bull, which could be tricky, I think Red Bull will be competitive, But if they can just edge out Red Bull, I imagine Mercedes will probably be the third quickest car around here in normal conditions. So yeah, I think Mercedes will be hoping that there is rain, and if we do see that, I think we're in for an absolute cracker. But if we don't, it'll still be pretty interesting, but probably a fight between Ferrari and Red Bull. But that's just an educated guess.
It's pretty much, I don't want to say must win for Vettel, but it's pretty important he wins this weekend, isn't it? Really, after everything that's happened, he really needs that win after what happened at Monza as well, especially. He needs it really because the critics are piping up. Hasn't been a great season for him, has it? Mistakes creeping in again. Last season, it turned on its head at Singapore against Vettel, but maybe this year could turn towards Vettel.
You never know. Yeah, that's the thing with Formula One. It only takes one small moment of misjudgment, like it did last year, and suddenly things can all change. So it could be a very good weekend for Vettel, and it's a track that he does really excel at. Always very, very strong at Singapore. So yeah, I would agree with you with that it's a must-win race, but I definitely think he can do it.
Who are we looking at as the fourth best team this weekend? Is it going to be Renault? But maybe a track that sort of suits them. They've had a pretty miserable time. Hulkenberg in particular, various grid penalties, hasn't scored since Germany. So he and the team needs a good result. McLaren maybe a little stronger this weekend, and maybe Force India, who were so impressive in both Spa and Monza, maybe falling a little bit behind this weekend.
Yeah, obviously Mercedes got Force India have got that upgrade coming this weekend finally that they've been waiting for because of the cash flow problems. So I don't know where they'll go. They've obviously been the fourth quickest car of recent times, quite close with Haas. So it'd be interesting to see whether Force India can now round their car to be strong absolutely everywhere, which they didn't have at the beginning of the season. In terms of out of Renault, Haas, I don't know. Will Haas be affected by having to change their floor after the disqualification in Italy? Was that a big performance gain? I think that's my major question. If they are affected by that, then that will really boost Renault's chances in the championship and help them probably be the fourth quickest car.
Also, we're actually not too bad at Spa and Monza. That Honda Power Unit seemed to be working fairly effective for them. Didn't quite get the results to show for it, but good pace shown. You're expecting a strong weekend for them. Their track that's not that power dominated.
Yeah, definitely. Gasly did well, didn't he, in both Monaco and Hungary, which are probably the two tracks that you would put in the same bracket as Singapore. So I'm definitely expecting Gasly to be up there, and it'd be nice to see Brendan Hartley as well, but I'm not too hopeful on that one, unfortunately. But yeah, definitely Gasly, I think, could be in for a really good weekend. Fourth there last year for Toro Rosso, so we never know.
And it's that kind of time of the year where sort of everyone's really fighting for their seats, aren't they? Some drivers are fighting for their future. They're really sort of driving like their seats depend on it. So it's just kind of that crucial time, isn't it? Sort of pretty much from sort of Hungary, Germany time, really. But now it sort of kicks in, it's crunch time.
Yeah, and as more and more seats fill up, it gets more and more pressured, and you get to that point where you kind of know who you're up against for a seat, and I must beat them. And sometimes it can help a driver's performance, and they do really, really well. I'd say that's what's helping Ocon's performances recently, has been because of that pressure. But other drivers can crumble under it. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see whether we see a lot of do or die driving from people this weekend.
And absolutely, and sometimes you even get sort of drivers like Van Dorn, maybe sort of kicked out, or sometimes drivers that know they won't be on the grid next year, and suddenly after that sort of pressure's off, they actually start doing really well and have sort of a good end to the season, don't they?
Yeah, that does happen quite a lot. I think with Palmer, kind of when his days were coming to an end, he got his sixth place, didn't he? Which was one of only 2 points finishes. So Yeah,
overtook Bottas last year. Of course, last year's Grand Prix early on.
yeah.
That was definitely my favourite moment. So yeah, I feel like Singapore's quite a good one actually. If you look through the history, sometimes drivers that have had a bad season, maybe like Hartley, Sir Watkins can sort of come up good and have a decent weekend.
Mm.
They certainly need it. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's so the season continues to ramp up. 30 points between Hamilton and Vettel. Who's going to win this weekend, James? That's the big question. I want one name. Who's going to win?
Vettel.
That's all right. We'll go for Verstappen. We'll say for
It
a
was.
shock,
Yeah.
shock Singapore win.
That would be my second choice, just to get it out there. When you're right,
Fair
that
enough.
would be my second choice.
Got all the
Vettel.
bases covered. Let me guess. Your third is Hamilton. I think that could be one of those three. We'll see. But maybe Raikkonen can do what we couldn't do in Monza, and like I say, I think there's still a very real possibility that Mercedes still win this weekend. Obviously, like I said, the rain's going to have a massive effect, and maybe a little bit of carnage as well. It's the longest race of the season, so yeah, plenty of time for something to happen. So, thank you all for watching. We'll have to see what happens at Singapore. Will it be Hamilton or Vettel? Or will it be Raikkonen, Bottas, Verstappen, or Ricciardo? Well, I think all 6 drivers potentially could win this weekend. Should be a classic. We'll speak after Monza, after Singapore. Goodbye.